We need to work together. I think in times of crisis, I think we all know that it's the celebrities that we count on most. They're the ones who are going to get us through this.
Absolutely the worst guy. He is a leverager. He's a bully. All these things. Applauding Deadpool is, oh my God, maybe he's going to make an appearance in the Avengers Doomsday movie.
The illusion of total creative freedom for Ryan Reynolds has officially hit a massive corporate wall as Disney executive leadership draws a firm line in the sand. They are stripping away the actor's unchecked autonomy and taking back absolute authority over the future direction of Deadpool. For years, fans were sold a specific narrative that when the Walt Disney Company acquired 20th Century Fox, Ryan Reynolds was handed the keys to the kingdom. It came with a legally binding promise that his R-rated, fourth-wall-breaking anti-hero would remain completely untouched by corporate censorship. We were told that Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige and Disney chief executive officer Bob Iger had granted Reynolds unprecedented creative license. He could mock the studio, poke fun at corporate greed, and push the boundaries of cinematic raunchiness further than any mainstream superhero film had ever dared. But behind the scenes, a very different power dynamic was unfolding in the executive suites of Burbank. The fantasy of Reynolds operating as an independent, unstoppable auteur inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe has officially shattered. It has been replaced by the stark reality that Disney is taking control, setting strict boundaries, and deciding exactly where Deadpool goes from here. The turning point in this quiet corporate takeover came directly from Ryan Reynolds himself during a candid, revealing interview on the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast. What was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance quickly turned into a stunning admission of executive overrule that left pop culture analysts and industry insiders completely breathless. Reynolds recounted the exact moment his perceived total freedom came crashing down during a private screening of Deadpool and Wolverine with Disney CEO Bob Iger. As Reynolds described it, the film was in great shape, polished and nearly finished, when the most powerful executive in Hollywood turned to him with a quiet, non-negotiable directive. According to Reynolds, Bob Iger looked at him after viewing the cut and said flatly that he had to remove one specific line from the movie. Reynolds, clearly taken aback, asked which line Iger was referring to, only for the Disney boss to respond with total executive certainty. He said that Reynolds already knew the exact line in question. When Reynolds clarified if he meant the joke about Mickey Mouse, Iger simply confirmed it with a definitive yes. What followed inside Bob Iger's office was a rare, tense glimpse into the power struggle between a superstar actor desperate to protect his creative vision and a studio mogul enforcing ultimate corporate sovereignty. Reynolds admitted that his initial reaction was pure artistic panic and resistance. He explained to O'Brien how he attempted to fight back, arguing directly to Iger that the entire movie orbited around that single line. He called it the central thrust, the thesis, and the emotional core of the film's meta-narrative. Reynolds confessed that in that moment his brain went into full protective possession. He likened his instinct to hold on to the line to Gollum obsessing over his precious ring. The friction was so intense that Reynolds literally had to step away, walking around Bob Iger's executive office and pacing in circles to compose himself. He realized that arguing with the head of the Walt Disney Company was a battle he was never going to win. In the end, Reynolds was forced to yield to executive authority, walking back his stance and replacing the line, because Bob Iger simply refused to allow the joke to exist inside a Disney-released film. The sheer severity of this executive intervention becomes even more dramatic when you examine what the removed line actually was. While Reynolds initially kept the exact dialogue under wraps, Disney's subsequent release of the official Deadpool and Wolverine screenplay for award season consideration accidentally exposed the censored scene to the public. The cut line occurred during a sequence where Deadpool discovers that Magneto is dead and realizes that iconic X-Men characters would not be making expensive cameo appearances. In the original unedited script, Deadpool launched into a profane tirade. He screamed that Disney was so absurdly cheap that he could barely breathe with all of Mickey Mouse's genitalia in his throat. While Reynolds and director Sean Levy thought the joke was the ultimate badge of edgy fourth-wall rebellion, Bob Iger recognized it as something else entirely. He saw it as a direct, graphic degradation of Disney's most cherished, multi-billion-dollar corporate mascot. Reynolds was ultimately forced to substitute the line with a safer joke involving Pinocchio. This proved that no matter how much swearing or blood Reynolds puts on screen, the core brand identity of Disney will always remain strictly off-limits. To understand why this podcast revelation is so massive, one must recognize that this wasn't just a minor note from an editor. It was a profound assertion of corporate dominance that fundamentally alters Ryan Reynolds' standing within Marvel Studios. For years, Reynolds had built a reputation as an untouchable Hollywood producer who wrote his own rules, controlled his own marketing, and operated with complete creative independence through his maximum effort banner. But Bob Iger's direct personal veto served as a stark reminder of who actually owns the IP in the high-stakes world of mega-budget studio filmmaking. When the chief executive officer personally steps into the editing room to demand the removal of a specific line, it signals a complete end to creator anarchy. It sends a clear message down the chain of command. Ryan Reynolds may be the face and voice of Deadpool, but Disney holds the scissors, controls the final cut, and dictates the precise boundaries of the character's universe. This clash over a single Mickey Mouse joke is part of a much larger, sweeping corporate shift happening across the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Following a string of massive box office disappointments, over-budget streaming series, and widespread complaints about creative direction, Disney executive leadership has instituted a ruthless pivot back to centralized studio control. Bob Iger publicly declared that Marvel Studios would be drastically reducing its output, cutting back on risky experimental projects and refocusing entirely on quality control, brand protection, and high-return tentpole franchises. Under this new mandate, the days of giving star actors and directors unchecked freedom to run wild with multi-hundred-million-dollar budgets are officially over. The studio is re-establishing strict executive oversight over every script, every joke, and every character arc. This ensures that individual artistic whims never endanger the broader commercial interests of the parent corporation. For Ryan Reynolds, this corporate tightening represents a dramatic shift in leverage. During the production of the first two Deadpool movies at 20th Century Fox, Reynolds enjoyed an unprecedented level of control. He worked with relatively modest budgets where executives largely left him alone to cultivate his signature brand of subversive humor. But stepping into the Disney ecosystem meant entering a multi-billion-dollar corporate machine where every line of dialogue is vetted by legal teams, brand strategists, and international marketing executives. Reynolds' admission that he felt compelled to pace around Bob Iger's office highlights the immense psychological and professional adjustment he had to make. He went from being the absolute ruler of his own isolated sandbox to an employee operating within a tightly regulated corporate empire. Even a joke he considered the core thesis of his film could be deleted with a single sentence from the CEO. Industry commentators note that this executive crackdown comes at a critical juncture for Deadpool's future within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As Marvel prepares to integrate the Merc with a mouth into massive ensemble events like Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, the question of creative control becomes even more urgent in these giant team-up spectacles. Deadpool cannot simply operate as a rogue agent making unfiltered, R-rated commentary about studio executives and corporate mascots. He must be integrated into PG-13 narratives alongside flagship characters like Spider-Man, Captain America, and Fantastic Four. Bob Iger's refusal to let Reynolds target Mickey Mouse proves that Disney will actively curb Deadpool's raunchiest instincts whenever necessary. They will do so to protect the tone, accessibility, and commercial viability of their broader cinematic universe.
Those requests never came. We had absolute creative freedom.
The broader implications of Disney taking back control extend far beyond a single deleted line of dialogue. It signals to the entire Hollywood community that the era of celebrity-driven auteur freedom inside major studio franchises is drawing to a definitive close. For years, stars like Reynolds leveraged their massive social media followings and production companies to demand total creative oversight, effectively outmaneuvering traditional studio executives. But as Hollywood faces intense economic pressures, rising production costs, and shifting consumer habits, media conglomerates like Disney are reasserting their authority with absolute firmness. They are reminding talent that while actors bring characters to life, the corporations own the intellectual property, control the distribution networks, and ultimately hold final cut privilege over every frame of footage released under their logo. What makes the situation even more compelling is how Ryan Reynolds has attempted to reframe the narrative in the media. By casually sharing the story on Conan O'Brien's podcast and playing it off as a humorous behind-the-scenes anecdote, Reynolds tried to soften the public perception of executive censorship. But beneath his charm and witty delivery lies the undeniable fact that he was publicly overruled on a project he spent years writing and producing. The fact that Disney chose to release the original script during awards season, allowing the cut joke to leak out to millions of fans anyway, added an extra layer of irony. Fans quickly began debating whether Iger's censorship was an act of corporate overreach or a necessary boundary to protect the studio's image, but the ultimate takeaway remained unchanged. Bob Iger made a demand, and Ryan Reynolds had no choice but to comply. As Marvel Studios moves forward into its next phase, the balance of power between Ryan Reynolds and Disney leadership will dictate the trajectory of the entire Deadpool franchise. Reynolds may continue to serve as the charismatic frontman, producer, and co-writer of future installments, but the days of him having unchecked authority over the script are officially over. Disney has demonstrated that it is fully prepared to step in, make executive cuts, and override the star's wishes whenever a line crosses their corporate comfort zone. Deadpool's path through the Marvel Cinematic Universe will no longer be determined solely by Ryan Reynolds' personal comedic vision. It will be shaped by a carefully calculated studio strategy designed to maximize box office revenue while strictly safeguarding Disney's global brand equity. In the final analysis, the story of the cut Mickey Mouse joke is far more than just a funny piece of trivia from a podcast interview. It is the definitive symbolic moment where Disney slammed the brakes on Ryan Reynolds' absolute freedom and established a new hierarchy of power. It showed the world that inside the vast Disney empire, no actor, no matter how famous, successful, or profitable, is bigger than the corporate mascot. Ryan Reynolds may have conquered the box office, built a multi-million-dollar marketing empire, and brought Deadpool into the highest echelon of superhero cinema. But when he stepped into Bob Iger's office, he was given a loud and clear reminder of the fundamental law of modern Hollywood. Disney controls the narrative, Disney dictates the terms, and Disney will decide exactly where Deadpool goes from here.